All right, everybody. This is preseason week 4 champ rotation. This is a new little series that I'm going to be doing, just kind of talking about each champ that's going to be new. And I have a close friend of mine coming in here that knows a lot about champs more than I do, Mr. Manslaughter.
Hello.
So we're just going to kind of go through each champ, and hopefully people like this. If not, we won't keep doing it. So the first champ we're going to get to is Olivia. And Cody, how do you feel about Olivia?
I feel Olivia is a very good AP carry. Definitely underrated by a lot of people. The one thing I really like about her, though, is she seems to be an AP carry that, as the game goes on, she doesn't get weaker like a lot of AP carries do.
I completely agree, yeah.
Like, you'll see an Annie who does extremely well early game, or just another very bursty AP carry do really well early game, but then as the game goes on and it gets more late game, you'll see that they'll throw off their burst and the people will be half health, maybe 1/3, but they won't die like they did early game.
Definitely. And one thing that Olivia has is she has a lot of crowd control, which is nice. With that stun and also the slows and that crystal wall, which is always fun to deal with in game. And she scales well, so I would say she's up there. Some of the best. Her skill shot's kind of easy to dodge, but her passive is also OP. So I don't know. I would rank Olivia in the top 5, maybe top 7, 8 AP carries. Definitely in the top 7.
Yeah, definitely up there.
All right, and the next champ we're going to move on to is Azrael. Now, I won't be talking a lot on Azrael because I've only played him once or twice. Cody knows a lot more than I do. So, Cody, what do you think? I mean, he obviously scales AP and AD. What do you feel about him?
Azrael's kind of a different AP carry in a sense because he scales off AP, first of all. But he's different in that I feel like he's a lot better early game than most AD carries are.
Mm-hmm.
But weirdly, he kind of scales down as the game goes on. And the reason I feel this is because he has a lot of teleporty, quick harass moves. He has a lot of skill shots that are pretty easy to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And his ult's good. But then you look at his late game, where you have other AD carries like Ashe, who has her crystal arrow and her slowing shots, or Vayne, who has her ult that makes her very good.
And the knockback, yeah.
Yeah, but Azrael doesn't really have much, or any CC. So you'll see him just kind of easily get focused. If he's getting hit late game by another carry, he's probably going to lose because they'll have some sort of CC on him.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like I said, I haven't played him a lot, but I played against him enough to know that early laning games, like when I would lane against him mid with, anybody, Brand, Annie, name whoever you'd like, it's always a rough lane because he can come in, hit you, and jump out, kind of like Cat or, I guess Akali would be, after she gets to 6. But yeah, the only real thing about Azrael that stands out really is his ultimate, it scales pretty well with AT and AD. So that's really the only thing I think Azrael brings to the table late game is kind of starting off that large amount of damage like the Ashe arrow, but it just doesn't stun or anything. It just does a little bit more damage.
Yeah. I will say one interesting thing about Azrael is his passive tends to make him a decent late game AD carry because even though he doesn't necessarily have CC, if he is throwing off those skill shots constantly, he gets that 50% attack speed increase, and it's very easy to just throw off his skill shots.
Yeah,
hit all of them late game.
Especially when people are grouped up in team fights. So, all right, and we'll move on to the next champ, Katarina. I feel like she's one of the most useless melee attackers. I don't know how you feel about it. I think her ult's trash. It's very easy to get around. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. It has a channel time and any CC that's hard, like a knock-up, a stun, within that channel time or during the ult, stops her ult completely.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's good if it's paired with like a Moo-Moo's. If you can get someone, a Moo-Moo to ult and then she can ult in the middle of that, it's good. But even then, you're not really damaging a lot. It's just, she's kind of a trash champ, I think. Unless she gets fed, like what you could say with every champ, so there's really no point saying it. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to contribute.
Yeah. Also, she's kind of like very hard to place on a team because you want her to be your melee carry, except for she's an AP champion.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, she's like a weaker Akali. And
exactly. I always say, if you're gonna play someone, you might as well play this person. That's exactly right. And Kat, if you're gonna play Kat, you might as well just play Akali because she has Soul Shroud and all that fun stuff. All right, we'll move on to the next one. This is the first tanky person we'll be talking about today, Leona. When she first came out of the league, a lot of people played her, and then she got a little bit of a nerf, if I remember correctly. Well, how do you feel about her now?
Well, when they nerfed her, they didn't take away any of her crowd control, which I thought was one of her strong points.
Mm-hmm.
She obviously doesn't have very high AP scaling, so there's no reason to build her damage. But if you build her tank, she has a nice AoE stun/slow ult, and she has some nice. She has a nice stun too, and her shield helps her be tanky.
Doesn't she have 2 stuns? I think, right? I believe she has 2. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. She has a skill shot stun and her ult.
And her ult, yeah. So that I guess as a straight tank, Leona's actually a very good champion as long as you don't need anyone to do damage. So yeah, she's not scaling well. She's scaling like 0.8, 0.4 throughout her whole build. So but yeah, as a tank, I would rank her again top 7. I mean, there's obviously better tanks. Like again, if you're gonna play Leona, might as well play Mumu or Alistar. In my opinion, I think Alistar's one of the better tanks. So
yeah.
All right, and moving on to Ryze. I don't know that much about Ryze. I've played against him. He's got a really annoying harass with that bouncing. I don't know what that's even called. Cody, would you like to shed some light on the issue?
It's Spellflex.
Yeah, it's so annoying. It's just he shoots it off, and you just have to hope that it doesn't hit you because it's completely random. How do you feel about Ryze?
I feel like Ryze has his uses. You could say he's a decent AP carry. I don't know. I'd put him about the same level as Olivia, probably a little bit lower than Olivia.
Okay.
But he has a snare, which is good, and I really like his passive. Well, not his passive. Excuse me. I really like how a couple of his abilities scale off mana, because that allows him to build a little bit more tanky than most AP carries. Like you'll see a lot of Ryzes build a Frozen Heart and get that 99 armor.
Yeah, and you could even build something like Rod of Ages, which gives you a little bit of mana and a little bit of AP, which would be a pretty decent item on him, I would expect. But again, I haven't played him, so I don't really know him that well. Moving on, we're going to move to Singed. I don't think anybody will disagree. He's one of the best champs in the game, one of the best tanks. I don't think that it'd be easy to argue that.
No, not at all.
I mean, incredibly tanky, does damage, has amazing CC. Well, not really CC, but he has a great slow, and that fling is just, it's insane. It's, like I said, I think he's one of the best tanks in the game. Definitely top 2 or 3.
I completely agree. I mean, the community obviously agrees too, because he's banned every other ranked game.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for all you people that haven't played ranked yet, don't learn a Mumu, Annie, Singed, or I don't know, Gangplank, or GP, because yeah, they always get banned. Yeah, Singed is just amazing champ. I recently started playing him. A lot of fun to play. You really feel like you're contributing as a tank. I've played a couple tanks, but definitely one of the best tanks, top 2 or 3, definitely. Moving on to Sivir. How do you feel about Sivir? I feel like she can do decent amount of damage, but isn't that versatile in fights.
I actually have come across a couple of very intelligent and good Sivers lately, and they told me that the main difference between most Sivir players and the ones who actually perform well in games is how they use their spell shield.
Okay.
Because it completely blocks an ability. And late game it only has a 10-second cooldown. So if you're able to use that effectively and block a lot of the stronger attacks coming at you, you can really do a lot of damage to any chance. But besides that, she doesn't have that much going on with her.
Yeah, and she gets that, from a spell shield, she gets that mana back. And again, if you're going to play Sivir, there's a lot of other champs you can play that are better options. You don't see her that much in ranked. Would you agree with that? I mean,
yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen her in ranked once. But,
me neither, actually.
Yeah. So, moving on, support champion. First support champion we're going to talk today. Well, I mean, I suppose you can play some of them support, but definitely straight support here, Sona. One of the more clever champs. I have to give Riot props on that. She has a harp. It's very interesting. It's funny. But how do you feel? I mean, she's okay. I think there's a lot better support champs out there. With Soraka, Janna has some nice CC. Well, how do you feel about Sona?
Sona's one of those champs, I think, that in the hands of someone extraordinarily good, I actually think she's one of the better support champs because of her ult, which is very, very useful in team fights.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she has a more consistent heal than a lot of the support champs. Like, Janna has her ult, but that's kind of used more to separate their team, save champs. It's not necessarily used to just straight heal.
Yeah, I'd agree. Janna's ult isn't that great. It's all right. It's not phenomenal. I think Soraka has a better ult than both of those champs with the global heal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on how you use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to support, that's a hard issue to tackle because you don't see a ton of them in ranked games, but you do every now and again, and when they are there, you can definitely feel the presence. It's hard to really tackle that issue, but Sona's one of the 4 or 5 straight support characters. There aren't that many of them. So
yeah.
All right, and moving on to the last champ of the day, the most annoying champ to lane against in a sustain lane, Yorick. I don't know if Cody would disagree with that, but when he summons those little things out of the ground, you just can't do anything about it. Unless you know how to combat that, Cody. What are your thoughts on Yorick?
Yorick, from my experience playing him, the only really way to combat those is you've got to kill his red ghoul because that's obviously his healing.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of wait for him to get low on mana. And that's really all I can say. He runs out of mana very quickly, so he's very mana dependent. But aside from that, he's just a very good champ because he's able to harass and keep up his farm at the same time.
But yeah, we just had a game against Yorick, and you were saying, okay, he's getting low on mana, get ready, and then that's when we would just go out after him. So I think that's the best way to do it. But is there anything else you'd like to comment on Yorick?
No. I will say this. If you're looking to learn Yorick, you got to spend more than just 1 or 2 games with him. You got to really stick to it. He's a difficult champ to learn.
Yeah, I would agree. As with most champs, give it 5 or 10 games. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this week, week 4 in the preseason for League of Legends, and thanks for watching. You guys have a great night.